This Sunday marks the Feast of Saint Ambrose, honoring the university's patron saint. In this week's What's the Buzz, SAU Weekly's Grant Ward highlights how the campus is celebrating this weekend.
Thanks, Sydney. Joining me now is SAU's Director of Campus Ministry, Tammy Norcross-Reitzler. Thanks for being here, Tammy.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah. So tell us, what is some of the history behind the Feast of Saint Ambrose?
Well, according to Father George McDaniel, our campus historian, he shared with me that we first celebrated the feast day in 1894, and mostly that day just happened to be like the president canceled classes for the day and students just had a fun day. But then the next year, the feast became a little more formalized. And so a lot of times through the years, it's included Mass or Vespers, some kind of prayer service, usually music, because St. Ambrose composed lots of music for the church. And so either a band or orchestra would play or one of our choirs would sing. So usually music was a big part of it. And then a lot of years too, there would be a speaker that would come to campus and share some insights or stories about our feast, about our saint, about St. Ambrose of Milan. So I've been here, this is my 12th year, and through the years it's kind of, changed off and on a little bit through the years, but mostly the consistent thing I think is Mass. We've always kind of celebrated that feast day with Mass.
Well, it's interesting that you bring all of that up because Dr. Amy Novak brings up how the Feast of St. Ambrose is really a time for reflection. And I feel like going off of the ideas of, the whole feast, the concerts, the Mass, it really works into that reflection time. How do you feel like that really factors into the story of St. Ambrose himself and the story of the university?
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, St. Ambrose, the person, was known for his writings in the church. And so there's a lot for us to reflect on from his writings. And, since Dr. Novak has been here, we've spent, I think, more time kind of reflecting on what that means for our campus. And so we came up with those core values of service, justice, courage, and wisdom, and now added mercy. And all of those are values that are reflected in St. Ambrose's own writings for the church. So one of the things we did this year that's new is that we've spent the last few weeks, every week, highlighting a different value. And we asked students or alumni to reflect on that value and how they kind of exemplify that in their lives, and how their Ambrose education, has kind of been a good way to grow in that value. And then we also recognized some clubs and organizations that are living out those values in their activities. So we kind of tied that all together throughout these last few weeks leading up to the feast day celebration.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's clear that there's some type of evolution going on then throughout the years. So let's go back to, you've been here for 12 years now. How exactly has that feast evolved since your time here?
Well, the feast day is December 7th, so sometimes that doesn't always fall on the most convenient time in our calendar, in our school year. Sometimes it's the middle of the week, it could be during finals week or whatever. So that has been part of it, is like some days, some years we've celebrated the feast on the closest Sunday. In recent years, we tried doing it on the actual feast day, so it might have been like on a Thursday or a Friday. We didn't get as much attendance on those weekdays, so this year we were excited because the feast day itself actually is Sunday, and so we get to celebrate it again on Sunday. So I think that has probably been the biggest thing, is just kind of playing around with when we actually celebrate the feast day. It's interesting, feast days are appointed by the church, so we don't get a say when it is. Like it would be more convenient to have it a different month even, right? But December 7th is the day that St. Ambrose was ordained Bishop of Milan. So that's the day that we celebrate his feast day in the church.
Yeah, I mean, it really works out this year. Having it on that Sunday is probably the best thing that really could happen. And, looking at that overall, there's not only events scheduled for Sunday, but there's events scheduled throughout the entire 3-day weekend. So
Yes.
Can you talk us through some of those events that we can expect?
So that's also part of the new initiative this year, is to kind of expand it and help to connect it all together so students see it as kind of one big weekend of celebration. So Friday night, the CAB, I believe, is the organization that's organizing the trivia night, and so they're including questions about St. Ambrose, I think the Saint and the University, and so that's Friday. Saturday is the Ambrosian Christmas concert, which is a beautiful music, again, appropriate because Ambrosian himself was a musician. And then, of course, Sunday will be our Mass. We'll have some donuts after Mass as well. And then Monday, Dr. Novak and her husband, Ken, will be hosting the soup and bread luncheon that they've been doing for the last few years. So it kind of, it gives us a whole weekend of ways to celebrate.
Definitely, and I feel like, it's very good leading up into finals week. We have this little celebration going on, this time for reflection,
Yeah.
So then, what do you hope to accomplish with this year's Feast of St. Ambrose moving forward?
I just, like you said, I think it's a great time to reflect on our namesake and all that he stood for. Ambrose, was very much about education, about doing good in the world and making a difference. And so I think those values we live out so much as Ambrosians that it's nice to be able to celebrate that and like you said, reflect on it. We do have a special guest for our Mass. So we have a student who is going to impersonate St. Ambrose of Milan and make a guest appearance at the end of the Mass. So I'm excited about that. He'll share a monologue in some of the words that Ambrose actually wrote himself.
Oh, that's exciting.
Yeah.
Well, I can't wait for all of the feast festivities. And thank you so much for being here, Tammy.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Back to you, Sydney.